Hello and welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Happy Tuesday. It is How to Tarot Tuesday, and what that is it is a weekly video series that I post here on my channel. Every week I focus on one card from the traditional 78 card tarot, starting with the Major Arcana. What we do is we go ahead and analyze the symbols of that card, and I also pull that card, the card in question, from one of 3 different tarot decks. I choose the images in the decks that I think best represent the imagery of the card that we're studying. And then once we are done analyzing the symbols, I will go ahead and let you choose from one of the 3 decks, and I go ahead and do a card reading to show how that card manifests in your life. And today we have card number 20. It's really card number 21 because the Fool is 0. But today's card is Judgment. And at any time, if you would like to skip over the description part of the reading, the timestamps are in the description box below. So if you want to jump straight to your card reading, feel free to do that. But otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. The first deck that I pull will always be what I call the Rider-Waite Smith version of the tarot. And the Rider-Waite Smith is the traditional cornerstone deck that is used by most tarot readers. It was created by Pamela Coleman Smith, and what it has is it has all of the kind of renowned and well-known depictions of the tarot as we know it today. Now, the Judgment card is a very special card for many reasons. It's the second to last of the Major Arcana. I can't believe we're almost done, talking about the majors. And what it depicts is it depicts an angel with a golden horn and a flag of almost, just like when you stake a claim or declare a victory, right? You post a flag. And here we have an angel, which is the Archangel Gabriel, and they are blowing a horn over what looks like a group of people, men, women, and children. There's a variance of age. All of them seem to be popping out of what looks like coffins. In the background, you see what looks like a small tree, and then it looks like what looks like kind of splashing water. And in the backgrounds, you see mountains, but you also see a very clear sky. And what it is Judgment is a very powerful card, just like all of the Major Arcana are, because the very depiction is that of coming alive again, right? You see these people, they're all gray, but the angel that's calling them to life is in full color. He's vibrant, he's, vital. And it looks like, even with the one woman, it looks like they're starting to regain themselves again. It's like something about the call of that golden horn is bringing them back to life. Now, what, the cross, the cross in its symbolism, the second deck that I chose is the Morgan Greer, and you see a lot of the same imagery. You see a man, a woman, and child. It's all in blue. They look like they're coming alive and lifting their hands and, like in victory. The waters are calm, and you see the same mountains and the same glorious golden, trumpet or horn. This trumpet looks like it is blazing with the flames of the sun, and it has that same red cross. And when you think of a red cross, it's like the cross itself just usually means, you think of almost like the Red Cross that come to somebody's aid in times of destruction. It's almost as if, seeing the cross is almost like saying, okay, you are going to, everything is healing, everything is the cavalry has arrived to save you or to make things better, to help you through. And so those are, all of those meanings really play into the meaning of judgment. Judgment is having a day of reckoning, right? It's if you've ever heard of the biblical, well, not even biblical, but it's kind of a modern colloquialism where you hear people talk about a coming to Jesus meeting, right? It's kind of like that. If it's a situation, it can be coming to a judgment that is very, very important. So in that vein, it means having an honest appraisal of a situation. A lot of times it is kind of a crossroads kind of energy. It just basically means that, a lot of times the fact that you're coming to life or you're coming back from a situation that you feel put you in a coffin, right? And in Lenormand, coffins mean endings. So, again, the judgment card is very multifaceted, and it's kind of the first meaning really kind of means finding your true vocation. It kind of means finding yourself. We talked about in the How to Tarot, we talked about the sun being like finding yourself at the center. The judgment card itself usually means finding your true self, right? And sometimes finding your true self comes after a time of feeling lost or feeling buried or feeling like something ended. This card does follow the Tower, it follows the Devil, it follows, so it's near the end of the journey, right? It's near the end of the journey. And again, you have another angelic figure. The third deck I went with was The Art of Tarot by Liz Dean, and again, you see the same thing. You see the flag of victory, and you see the Archangel Gabriel blowing the horn, and you see the waves in the background, right? And another Lenormand reading is the ship, and the ship is always on water, which means a journey. Now, it's a calling to act. And it's calling you into a new direction. And it's calling you in a direction that you are meant to go. Sometimes by calling you in a direction that you're meant to go, it might be pulling you away from something else. It could be calling you to a vocation that might be completely different than what you're doing now. But again, with the coffins and everything else, maybe you are in an in-between place. Maybe you are not happy where you are. And judgment is the way of the universe sending you signs as to where you're supposed to go. One of my favorite astrologers, and God rest her, Donna Cunningham, actually mentioned that in her book Moon Signs. She had not really studied astrology until she was a little bit later on. She was older when she first started to study astrology, and it was one of those things where she never thought that it would ever be her career, right? And she even said, she goes, it was a calling. It was a calling. I had that moment, that epiphany, that wake up moment where I knew that this was something that I needed to do, that this was something I needed to put out there. And the thing is, with the angel and the trumpet, it's the kind of calling that you really can't always explain to other people, right? It's kind of that instinctual, what you need to do kind of feeling. And sometimes people might think you're crazy for it, right? The judgment card is about knowing what you must do and, taking a chance on following the path that it's calling you to take. The other thing about judgment, and the fact that it does have the term judge in it, very much like justice, it can mean that you sometimes have to make a really hard decision, right? It can mean that you have to, and not to compare it to life and death, but when you kind of see this, sometimes, again, if you are following a path, and I remember in the How to Tarot for the Tower, we talked a lot about midlife crises and about how sometimes you get so far on a certain path, and then you can't turn over your apple cart overnight. But there are definitely moments, kind of forks in the road, where if you were not happy, if what you were doing was not making you happy, sometimes there does have to be that voice. And again, it doesn't have to be like a lightning type of an event. You don't have to, in one day, change everything that you do. It can be very gradual, but this is the epiphany that gets you there, right? But this is also the epiphany that gets you to make the tough choices. It is the coming to Jesus meeting. It is the sitting down and saying, this is what I would like to do. And the other thing about it is that you stick to it, right? You stick to it, or the surrounding cards would really kind of discern. It is also about having a renewed hope. As you can see, you're coming out of the dark. And it's funny, I know I quote a lot of kind of antiquated songs by this one, but I always think of that, what is it, Gloria Estefan song, Coming Out of the Dark. I've finally seen light now. And what that also makes me think of is sometimes if you see this around any health-related cards, it really does mean having a renewed sense of hope. The other thing that it can kind of pertain to in the health sense is that Gloria Estefan actually wrote the song Coming Out of the Dark after she had had a very scary car accident, or I don't know if it was a plane or a car accident, but she nearly broke her back. And she went through months and months and months of physical therapy, and she was really laid up. And it's statistically proven, like if, people joke about being in a full body cast, when you were actually laid up in the hospital and immobile, human beings and animals, you can't, it is almost like a little death in being immobile. You're meant to move, right? You're meant to move. Just like you see military troops who, like wounded warriors who are put in wheelchairs or are forced to use prosthetic limbs. It's a new way of life. And when you have a new way of life and you are adapting to that, it can feel very bleak. It can feel like a death, even though you're still alive. And adapting to that new life, at some point, you get over the hump, right? As when you're first starting out, it feels like an insurmountable obstacle. And again, when you see the mountains in the background, right, and the choppy water, it's churned up emotions. It's a challenge that you feel like you will not surmount. But at some point in her healing, and you get kind of over a hump, where you get used to the prosthetic limb, or you accept the fact that you have to live in a new way. And then all of a sudden, it does feel like the clouds are parting, right? It feels like a new hope, like you have a new lease on life. And I encourage you that if you ever do get the Judgment card in like a really tough way that way, and you're questioning it and you're questioning yourself, go ahead and Google or look up some of the stories. I know there's several celebrities, a few have had like really close near death or really scary kind of things happen. And they were blessed enough to come out of it, where they could still walk or they could still see, but they're having gone through that experience gave them a new perspective on religion and on life. So that I think of when I think of judgment, because it really is like that. You hit some kind of cornerstone. Now, the other thing is relationship-wise, because there is water in these images, and especially in the third one, there's what looks like a map. It almost looks like the map of the ocean. With that, you really do want to, relationship-wise, it can be after a time of divorce. Like, for instance, if you see this come after maybe justice in reverse, maybe you went through a really bad divorce and you are adapting to being single again or dating again, or maybe you moved out and you're getting adapted to the new living situation or your new financial situation. Maybe you started a job that you've always wanted to do but thought that you couldn't do. Those are the kind of judgment type of moments. You feel like, oh gosh, I just went through something really challenging, something that felt like, you know, I know the trite old adage, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? But it does. I mean, these people are popping out of coffins, right? You know, it's kind of that feeling. But it's about seeing the light and seeing things in a new way and feeling hope again after something that was very trying. Now, the other thing that it can be is that in that same vein, it can be that the type of judgment where if you have wronged somebody or if somebody has wronged you, sometimes you get restitution for those type of situations and sometimes you don't. If someone, you know, harmed you, either emotionally, physically, psychologically, if they make amends for it, sometimes that would come up as a judgment card, okay? You know, it doesn't make it right, you know, you forgive but you don't forget. But it basically means kind of being washed of your sins, right? So a lot of times judgment can mean forgiving yourself. It can mean forgiving other people. It can be you making amends to someone and kind of feeling like, okay, you know, I've done what I can in order to make this situation right. So either that, or they always talk about, you know, how forgiveness releases two prisoners. And it really is a tough concept because I know on this channel we've talked a lot about karma and we've talked a lot about, you know, what makes something wrong and what makes something right. And the funny thing is there's really, you know, life is not always fair. You're not always going to get an answer. Sometimes there might be something that happened and it might have happened for a higher reason that you don't comprehend and you still feel wronged. But by accepting that it happened and healing yourself and refusing to let whatever happened hold you back. Also, you know, again, in that vein, you know, by forgiving someone, you're not condoning what happened. You're not saying that it's right. But you are saying that, you know, that you want to release it in order for there to be light for both persons, right? And I do assure you that no one gets off scot-free in this life. Everybody has their own journeys, and if there was a behavior that was destructive, that it inadvertently affected you, most of the time the person or the persons or the situation that affected you really was not intentional. It's amazing how much happens in this life that people think is, you know, most of the time it doesn't have anything to do with you, and not in a cold or detached way. It just means that it's the other person's damage, not yours. And sometimes by letting go, you can really heal yourself, and that is where, in this sense, judgment means leveling up. It means going to a higher level of understanding, right? It's like seeing the light in a situation, even though it's bleak, because there's a spiritual higher knowing or higher evolution that comes from that. And sometimes you might not even understand it fully. You just know that by surrendering, and that's another really big key word, is surrender. You know, is by surrendering to the understanding that, you know, there's a lot of crappy situations in life, right? There's a lot of crappy ones, but you are a soul, and you do evolve, and you do grow, and you do learn from these experiences, and any other persons involved or parties involved also learn as well. So don't, you know, take solace in that. But the thing that it does mean is it means, you know, releasing the guilt and the sorrow, not letting anything weigh you down, surrendering to the light, and just, and especially if you saw this next to a card like the Hierophant, it definitely means that you have kind of earned your karmic brownie points, either that or the other person, the other parties earn their karmic brownie points from what had transpired. Now, some of the, it can, next to few of the sad cards, it can mean regrets. It can definitely mean something that you might feel judged by the universe for, maybe the wrongs that you've done against somebody. But in that same vein, it's just, next week we're going to be talking about the World, which is the last card, the last ending. And in this being the precursor to that, with Judgment being the card before, it's the second to last card, it really does kind of mean the end of an era, right? There's a few cards that are very, like cycle related. Wheel of Fortune is one. It definitely means, divine intervention. And Judgment also means divine intervention, but it means it in kind of a different way. It just, have you ever, in a situational sense, have you ever witnessed an end of an era? Maybe you had a business that, had been going strong for 30 years and, the owner wants to retire, so he sells, and that's the end of an era. Maybe, sometimes if you see it next to a heavy hitter like death, maybe the matriarch or patriarch of your family passes away, and then all of a sudden you feel like a torch is being passed, right? Like no one can fill their shoes. Judgment can be, the end of a marriage. It can be, it can also mean the kind of more positive transitions where it can mean things like graduations from college. Sometimes if you've been in one position for a really long time and you did well, and then all of a sudden you get a promotion, but that promotion takes you to a different place or another state or another country. And it's a joyous thing, and it is your calling, but there's a little element of bittersweet about it because it's the ending of one cycle and the beginning of another. Sometimes it can be things like, where the stage of life that you're in. Maybe your kids, maybe it's an empty nest thing. Maybe your kids just went away to college and, you get to redecorate your home because it's your home again. It's either that or maybe you moved because you're retiring and you need to downsize. All of these are kind of the ending of one life cycle and the beginning of another. And as you do that, you really just kind of think, how is this going to go? And I always feel a little bit of awe at that too, because you feel like you're standing, if you've ever been there in that moment. I know it sounds really stupid, but I remember I was there in 1999 when all of the cassette tapes went away and it was all DVD. And I know that sounds silly, but it did. It felt like that. It's that weird kind of eerie moment when you know that the paradigm is shifting, right? Things are changing. And it is, and in that vein, it is that moment where things will not be the same. It's going to be different from this moment moving forward. So that's what this typically means. Now, when it comes to, in that vein, it really is a call to action. And it does also have a lot of phoenix kind of imagery, again, with the flames and the, so it tends to mean a lot of resurrection. It means that, so in that sense too, it could be you going back to something that you love to do. It's interesting that actually this kind of happened. I was actually thinking this was amazing that I'm talking about Judgment today because, when I was a teenager, I absolutely loved I'm not a good scientist. I'm more of an arts and English person, but I've always cared about environmental issues. Like I like to be in the know. I like to just at least know what's happening with, subjects like, air health, ice caps, water quality, recycling. And I went ahead and I enrolled for an 8-week non-credit class. And it was interesting, the other day, we did a tour of NASA, and I got to, tour the control center for satellites. I got to talk to 40-year complete specialists in, ice caps and sea ice, and that felt like, all the things that I studied as a teenager. And then when I graduated college, I interned for the EPA, and I studied, what was going on at that time, which was more than 10 years ago. And then revisiting it, it felt like a judgment moment to me. It felt like a calling, like I was going back to something that I know, right? It's like something that was dormant inside of me just sparked up again, and I just came back to life. So a lot of times if you see judgment in that sense, maybe you are completely regenerating or going back to something that you're really good at. You see that with a lot of celebrities too. It seems like they'll be real popular for something, and then you don't see them in the media for like 10 years. And then they go, if it's a musician, if they go back on tour, you're like, oh my God, this is great, they're back. So judgment can definitely be that kind of call to action. Taking on a new direction, a new spin to the things that you like to do. Now, the other thing about judgment is when you look at judgment in reverse. Judgment in reverse can sometimes be a little bit of an identity crisis. What it is maybe you have something that you are called to do, but you are stalling, or you feel like you can't. The energy is blocked. Sometimes you see this card whenever you're called to do something, but you're afraid that you'll be judged for it, or you feel like you just can't because you're not good enough or you're not qualified enough. Sometimes judgment in reverse can be the delay of the calling. Like, say for instance, you want to start off on a new direction, but you're going through a divorce and you can't because you still have to fight a legal battle, or maybe you want to move, but you have a cohabitation situation with someone and you can't. A lot of times it can mean kind of the negative sense of judgment, meaning that maybe you feel like you have not, like you're being punished, or the penance that you're being punished, or that the penance that you need to pay for wrongdoings is being drawn out, and that's delaying you from getting over those situations, getting past what happened. Now, the other thing is you might be avoiding an important decision. That's a real big one with judgment in reverse. Maybe there's something that you do have to do that's very, very pressing. It's going to be life-changing, but maybe you're afraid because it is going to be life-changing. It's going to be a whole new world, and in that sense, you're avoidant. You don't want to do it. You don't want to take that leap. You don't want to heed the call. You're pretending like you don't hear the trumpet, even though it's kind of blowing right in your ear, right? A lot of times sometimes it can feel like unwanted changes, or like you're being forced to do something that you don't want to do. But either that, or this, in the sense, if it represents people, it can be, when it represents people, it can be it can be what you feel is kind of a higher power, you know, so it can be literally judges or somebody that you feel is judging you. You know, in a negative sense, it can be the person or parties that you feel are forcing you to change. Or in a real spiritual sense, and again, because this is an angel, and just like we saw with the devil, you know, you can have an angel on one shoulder. It could just be that little voice in your head that's, you know, urging you to make the right choice, you know? But any way you look at it, the Judgment card is a really, really beautiful card. It is a herald of change, literally. And it just, normally, you know, it means that it's also, you know, the point in life when things really are about to shift and go into a whole new direction. All right, guys, well, that was the definition of judgment. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you choose from one of the 3 decks. I do ask that, you know, you just choose from your gut instinct. Sometimes you can go by the images or, you know, the artwork. A lot of times you could, if you have a favorite number or you want to go with the numerology that you see in the timestamp, another good way is to look at each deck and to ask the question, how is judgment manifesting in my life? And whichever deck really gives you that kind of ping in your stomach, you know, that's usually a good indicator that that is your deck. So I'll go ahead and do a freeze frame. If you need more time, please feel free to pause the video, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're back. I'm going to start first with the Rider-Waite-Smith. All of the descriptions of the cards that I use are in the description box below. And how does the judgment manifest in your life? Okay, may I get a clarifier? Thank you. Okay, and for the record, the Three of Pentacles really wants to come out. Okay. So guys, the way that judgment manifests in your life is, in the past we got the Tower and it was clarified by the Ace of Wands. So you had judgment in this case, you had some kind of sudden event. You had a breakdown of something. There was a structure in your life that was really not stable. It was not built on a solid foundation. But the breakdown of it was a blessing in disguise. It was, you know, I'm really getting a feeling as if it's most definitely relationship related. There was just kind of there was definitely some kind of relationship that you had that really just, it was not going the way that it should have. Everything about it was, you know, in your mind, you probably kind of knew what was happening with it. Like you would think that from the outside that it looked like a good match, but things were just not jiving, or you know, you just knew in your heart of hearts that it wasn't going the way that it was supposed to go. And now when the lightning strikes, it's kind of an epiphany. It's kind of that you know, that moment that really gets you to, you know, see things clearly. And you know, with the entire process, even if it was shocking and kind of unnerving, it really did spark you to want to turn that energy into something better. Like it was a catalyst. It was a catalyst for a new endeavor, a new journey, something that physically and emotionally and spiritually kind of, I almost think of it like the hitting the ball out of the park. Like it really is like the start of something that really just knocked you into a whole new place. And the judgment part of it, or the part that really, was the healing. What it is the Four of Swords. You see this person, and it, in that sense, he really does almost look like, the gray people, right? You look at that, and he almost looks like he is in shadow, right? It's almost as if he was laying on top of that coffin, right? And just like we said earlier, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But the thinking about the situation, the thinking about what went wrong, and why it wasn't built on a solid foundation, why it didn't work out, that taking the time to heal, that, and actually that withdrawing too, it's like you pulled away and you really took the time to understand what went wrong. And while you did that, that was your judgment moment, right? That was your judgment moment. That's what opened up your mind and got you to understand, where you were supposed to go. Now, in the future, and where you're heading, is you got the Two of Cups, you got the King of Cups, and you got the Empress. And gosh, guys, there is no prettier spread than this, because I'm seeing a love connection with a very emotionally mature man and a very nurturing woman. The Empress is the Queen of Queens. She embodies all four queens. So she has the emotional nurturance of the Queen of Cups. She has the mental agility of the Queen of Swords. She has the practicality and, the conscientiousness of the Queen of Pentacles. And, and she's got the creativity and the warmth of the Queen of Wands. So I just think that what you went through and the healing that you went through because of that situation, it is sparking a new beginning, and it's going to give you what you want in your relationship realm. It's, if you didn't have what you wanted before, you're going to have it in the future. And if you're a feminine watching this, you're coming across as the Empress. If you're a masculine watching this, you're coming across as the King of Cups. King of Cups knows what he has to offer. He is a nurturing man. He's a kind man, and he does it in a masculine form. He gives. He's a very balanced character. What's so great about the King of Cups is that he really is. He's a king, so he's still very masculine, but he's that kind of masculine that really knows when to give to you. He knows, he's the kind of husband that knows when you're upset and knows exactly how to give enough to make you feel better without being smothering, without it being too much. He has the perfect balance that makes you feel cared for. And these two characters together are a really perfect match. And the other thing about the Empress is that it does specifically indicate that this person you would start a family with, right? You would start a family, you would have children, because she's the mother, right? She's the mother. And, and the King of Cups is an excellent father. He's the type of father who raises his children with a lot of emotional stability. He raises kids the right way, where they're just a very emotionally on the level kind of family. So wow, guys, that's what I see. That's how the judgment, you know, how judgment is manifesting in your life. And also that Empress is very just creative. Again, she's kind of like, you know, she has all of the elements within. So that's a very prosperous life, guys. That's amazing. All right. So deck number 2, the Morgan Greer. How does judgment manifest in your life? Okay, sorry, it's way too many cards. Take note. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take that. You got some majors. This whole middle line is majors. Can you see? Whole middle line is Major Arcana. Oh, and you got a major behind, and ooh, this is pretty powerful, guys. All right, so the way judgment manifests in your life is that in the past you have the High Priestess and you got the Page of Swords. So in the past, I really get the feeling that in the past let me go ahead, I'm just kind of getting a beat on this. In the past, I really get a vibe as if you had a great understanding. You had a great understanding of things that you wanted to do. Like, I'm getting almost like a kind of dormant vibe in the past. Just like we saw, these people are kind of, they were in the coffin, they were in blue, right? And blue is almost kind of like not a stagnant color, but it's kind of like a shaded, it's a cool, it's a non-active kind of feeling. And you see how much blue is in the High Priestess. It's intellectual, and with the Page of Swords, it's very intellectual. But I think what you did is, a lot of times in the past, you were not very active. Like, maybe you had a lot of ideas, and that's the thing with the Page too. A Page is a novice. He's a beginner. He's someone who doesn't, he's, you know, not a knight. He's not going out on missions, and he's not a king or a queen. But what it was is, in the past, you had a great instinctual knowledge of things. And I think, again, with the scroll being in her hands, and I just think that you know, I think you've probably in the past read a lot of articles about things, or maybe you've watched a lot of social media, but you did it in a very quiet way. A little bit of the Page of Swords always gets a reputation of being what they call the internet stalker, which is, I always feel, is a completely okay moniker, because all it means is that, you know, you're not trolling anyone. You're not out there publicly mouthing off about things. You stay in the background, and that's something that the High Priestess does too. She steps back. She observes, right? She observes, and she instinctually knows. She's very silent but very wise. And I think what you've always done in the past is that you've kind of taken that stance on things. Maybe you had a lot of concerns about things going on in, you know, at work, or things going on at home, but you never jumped into it and was real vocal about things. You always kind of stayed in the background. You'd sit back and watch, but you would stay up to date and educated about it, right? You'd read the articles that interest you, you'd watch the videos, and you'd say, hey, you know, okay. But it wasn't like you were out taking action or being vocal or doing things about what you were interested in. You always kept it in a real novice kind of way. Now, in the middle, and this is the powerhouse, you got Judgment, Temperance, and the Sun. Here, I really see that Temperance is, you know, the Sun, Temperance is the balancing of two things, right? It's the tempering. She's standing on land, and she has a toe in the water. And the thing that you remember is that this angel in Temperance isn't named. Like, I don't think that it's a particular name, but the angel that is in the Judgment card is the Archangel Gabriel. And the fact that you have a heavenly body in these two cards and you're balancing, right? I think what it's telling you is that, and the fact that the sun is the clarifier, and the sun is that coming, it is that spotlight card. We just how to tarot on the sun last week. So if you get a chance, if you want to watch that video, it's very interesting. But the way that I see it is, there are two people in this card, but the vibe that I'm getting is, and especially with the High Priestess being kind of a moon character, you see her headdress is the moon, and then here's the sun. And the two here, I always think of the twins, Artemis and Apollo. But what it is that I think you are balancing this hidden part of you with your outgoing part of you, right? I think that you have this outward persona, and then you have this internal kind of sit back and watch and learn persona. And I think Judgment is calling you, and again, with all this red and gold, I really think Judgment is calling you to get out of the blue, right? Out of the blue. Because you also see the sun, it seems like this is all lunar, and then Temperance is the sun behind the angel, right? I think it's calling you to take some of that knowledge, and put it out into the world, right? And you can do that in many different ways, right? It doesn't have to be on a grand scale. Like, you don't have to be on Good Morning America in order to, put yourself out there. Maybe if you start a YouTube channel about a subject you're passionate about. Maybe I had mentioned earlier, I'm taking an environmental course that's a non-credit course, and I'm meeting a lot of people who care about the environment for different reasons. I met people who really love their flowers. They just are experts on flowers. You could start a YouTube channel about the differences in flowers. You can start a YouTube channel about tarot. You can start, a blog post, or maybe even on a small scale, get out there and create a meetup group for people who have the same interests as you. But basically, it's just telling you to take some of this inner knowledge, take some of this knowledge that you've kept under wraps, and kind of put it out there a little bit, right? And again, it doesn't have to be anything wild or out there, but, and it doesn't have to be anything high commitment, but it is kind of telling you to balance those two sides of yourself. It's almost telling you that you have a lot to give, you have a lot to share, and you can come out of the dark with it. You can come out, and again, the High Priestess is very mysterious, but here I also get the vibe as if you know a lot, but you think that you don't. Like, you think that your understanding is real novice, but really you know a lot more than you think you do, and it would be a benefit to come out and share that with others. Now, as you go into the future, I am kind of giggling because, I kept getting the Queen of Pentacles card, and I was a little bit stumped because, again, I've read tarot for many, many years, and you can always glean new interpretations. But one thing that I never realized about the Queen of Pentacles is that, I always kept thinking, oh, well, she's good with money. She knows how to balance a checkbook. She knows how to run a home. She's that physical, real world. But she's also a nature queen. And I don't know why that's... The Empress is a nature queen too. She's the nature queen of queens, but look at the crown on the Queen of Pentacles. And doesn't it look like the petals of a sunflower? Right? Now, Sun rules Leo, and normally if you're an outgoing, vivacious kind of queen, I think of the Queen of Wands. But here, I'm seeing autumn, and I'm seeing mountains behind her, and I'm seeing red and gold. Wow, guys. I think you are being called to be of service in the real world. I do think that you have knowledge, either as a scientist or as a practical person, maybe with nature. Maybe this is my pile. I always wait a few days and then I pick a pile with you. But the reason that I say that is because the Hermit is also a very solitude card. It's someone who pulls into themselves. But the difference between the High Priestess and the Hermit is the High Priestess, she knows things about realms that are unseen. And the Hermit has been out in the world. He's been out in the world, and he's very knowledgeable. The common denominator between the Queen of Pentacles and the Hermit is that they've been out in the world and they have seen things, right? So what it's kind of calling you to do is, as you move forward, it's calling you to, you've done a lot of, you understand on a subliminal level, and you've watched a lot of media about some kind of subject or subject that's important to you. You have the ability to really bring that subject to light, but what it's calling you to do, or what it's calling you to do, is that with your real world knowledge, go out into the real world and compare what the real world looks like compared to all of the videos and all of the, you can see the Page of Swords almost looks like the Queen of Pentacles here, right? Take all of the, it's almost like take the two worlds, the two cups, right? And blend them. All of the knowledge that you've gained by reading books or watching videos or that you think that, just the novice everyday things that you do. Go out into the real world and compare the video version of the world to the real world, and then pull into yourself for a little while and think about that knowledge, right? And I think what it is telling you is that you are going to be very, very successful. This could be a hobby, or it could be, a career. But I am getting a very strong vibe that by blending these two sides of yourself, the understanding that you have by book learning or just instinctually, compared with the real physical world aspect, if you blend those two and bring them out into the world in some way, sharing it with other people, it's going to make you very emotionally happy. And it is also just going to give you a better understanding of the world. You're going to feel like just like we said, judgment is that change of gears. It's that moving in a direction that you really want to go in. It's going to do that for you, right? And I know that seems a little bit, vague because it's not giving exact descriptors, but I do think that, and let me go ahead. I'll go ahead and let's pull just one more card. Okay, so the Queen of Pentacles. What is the real world thing that the Queen of Pentacles? Please clarify. And you see this here, right? Okay. Oh, the Lovers. Okay. Well, that did kind of take a turn. It is turning out to be a little bit of a love vibe, guys. But, In the other sense, I do think that what I'm kind of seeing here too is that it could be a little bit of a love situation where I'm seeing a lot of pride with one person. And again, we've talked about judgment, we've talked about, forgiving of sins, but there was pride with someone that caused a downfall. It caused the ending of something. It caused a painful ending of something, of a relationship. And at this point, after all of that pride, there was a stalemate. There was a, there's a stalemate. Both parties are ignoring their feelings, and they're not speaking to one another. But the Queen of Pentacles is coming across as the Lovers, or, she's looking at the Lovers. Yeah. Sorry guys, I'm getting a real immature energy here. I'm getting an immature energy here. But, so the person you were dealing with they were impulsive and they weren't very mature, and there's a lot of pride here. But I do see that there's going to be, I stand by what I said before. I think what is happening is that part of the situation and part of the judgment is that you may have gone through some kind of separation, or you were probably in a place where you were just really ready to go it alone. That, maybe you were in a relationship that was just not giving you what you needed, and you felt like you needed to kind of lean back and kind of do your own thing. And as you were leaning back, doing your own thing, you really got a calling to do something that you were passionate about. And again, that same vein, this thing that you would be passionate about would bring you, it would kind of bring you out of the dark. It would bring you out of this funk, right? And there are things that you like to do that you think that you're not strong at. You think that you're a novice about. But here it is telling me that you're not a novice at it. You're very good about it. You know a lot more than you think you do. And I do see that moving forward, I do see that, because the other thing is the Lovers is a choice. The Lovers can be a choice between two things. And in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, there are angels in 3 of these cards. There's an angel in Judgment, there's an angel in Temperance, and in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, there's an angel in the Lovers. But I do think what it's kind of telling you is that if you are at some kind of standstill in your life, if life events are on pause, or you feel like they're just not moving forward, move forward with the things that you love to do. Move forward with the things you love to do. Do you in a big way. Like, seriously, get passionate about the things that make you you. And as you move forward, really decide what you want your life to be, because that's the other thing about Judgment. Decide what you want life to be, and you will get what you want out of it, right? You'll get the 9 of Cups. And it honestly kind of looks like you might get a relationship out of the deal too, but I do see that around the Sun and around the 9 of Cups, we've got kind of what looks like a painful ending. And then, we've got, a standoff where, no one is talking or acknowledging feelings. And there's kind of an immature Wands energy in between. So I would just also say that maybe you have some big changes going on in your life. It might have been because the catalyst of it might have been like either an ended relationship, or, but what you are doing is you are moving forward, and you are going forward with the things that bring you joy, and that, you're moving forward with your strengths. And it is going to make you, the Queen of Pentacles. And that's someone who's successful, and that's someone who's very emotionally stable, right? They know what to do. They know the practical way to live. And you can be a man or a woman and exuding the Queen of Pentacles. It just means emotionally, you are solid. You're steady. right? And that's really ideal. That's where you want to be. And that is what the judgment is going to bring you. You know, the calling is going to bring you to a place of emotional stability where, you know, you are manifesting in the physical world, you know, what you are good at. So that is how judgment is manifesting in your life, guys. Wow, that was deep. That actually kind of took a turn. But all right, so deck number 3, Judgment. Let's go ahead and see, how does judgment manifest in your life? Thank you. Oh gosh. So, oh, thank you. Oh, you got the star. Awesome. Okay, please clarify. Oh. Let's clarify the star. Okay, 5 of Wands. Please clarify. Alright guys, I appreciate your patience. We definitely got a story going here. I'm just double checking one thing. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and go with it. All right. So to begin, we got the Page of Swords in the first position, and honestly, we kind of got that with the middle pile. But to clarify it, we got the Queen of Wands and we got the 7 of Pentacles. So basically, in the past, again, we have some more of that real novice mental energy. I think what's happening is, in the past, with the Page of Swords, it's a very kind of, it's what I refer to as kind of a flitting energy. It is like, it's like social media. It's kind of like the news feed of just simple everyday things in your life. And so here, I am definitely getting a vibe as if, I feel like you are a very dynamic person. You're a very creative person. You're coming across as the Queen of Wands. And the 7 of Pentacles is that evaluation of things that are growing, right? It's the farmer looking at his crops and just, he has a look of discernment on his face, as if, you know, as if the crops just do not seem like they're growing fast enough or quick enough, or that, you know, that it's just, he's deciding whether or not that's what he wants. So I think in the past, what was happening is, I definitely am getting kind of a lull energy, as if, you know, again, with the other depictions of judgment, you see people who look like they were in coffins, right? And your judgment doesn't show any of that imagery. It does not show any of the people coming back from the dead, so to speak. So with that, it's almost like you have the vantage point. It's almost as if you're the person in the coffin looking up at the angel, right? So I do think in the past that you did just kind of feel as if, it really kind of get the vibe as if you felt like you had never really done much in the past, right? It's as if in the past things were just very, you know, social media news feed, right? You're an incredibly creative person, you know, and you're just kind of looking at how far you've come in life, and you're feeling like it's really not it's really not as far as you thought it would be, right? You're not exactly in the place that you expected to be, either that or, for as creative as you are, things have just been very surface level thus far in your life. And remember we said how judgment can mean like midlife crises, or I always joke and I always call it no life crisis, because sometimes you feel like, gosh, okay, by the time I was, when I was a kid and I said I thought about where I would be at this point in my life at this age, have I achieved any of the things that I thought I would? And granted, you don't have to answer to your 7-year-old self all the time, but you definitely do raise the question, because that's the other thing about judgment. Remember, we said it's a coming to Jesus meeting, right? It's really what's going on? Is this what I expected? I need to, if I want my life to be what I want it to be, I need to make the changes now, right? There's a sense of urgency about it. But here I just think that you are a highly creative person. You feel like everything has been real surface level, and you've in the recent past you've been doing kind of this evaluation to say, am I really where I want to be? Is this where I expect it to be? Now in the middle you have the star. And again, we've had a tarot on the star, and it's an absolute gorgeous card. I really debated. I really thought about using this deck as one of the depictors of the star, but it's been a tough choice getting, as I've gotten further along in the Major Arcana, choosing the cards for the imagery has gotten tougher and tougher. But the star is that calm after the storm, and it is that sense of hope, right? There's a sense of hope. And I do think that what's happening is that I am also getting the vibe that the fact that these two characters, normally the star is not depicted as an angel, right? But in this card, she's got wings. I think what it's telling you is that I think that it's asking you to see the situation from a higher perspective. A lot of times we come so far in our life and we think that we haven't accomplished as much as we have. Either that, or when you do find yourself full of despairing feelings, all of a sudden you think that your accomplishments aren't enough, or you kind of berate yourself, and that's not really fair, But the fact that this is the Page of Swords and then this is the Star, and they're both kind of angels, I think they are kind of telling you that your perception of the situation, your perception that this growth is lacking, might not be accurate. It might not be accurate. It might be saying that nothing is wasted in this situation. And I've learned that a lot, just in life in general, is that it's important to remember that things, they're just like you can feel appreciation, it's scientifically proven that you cannot feel fear and appreciation at the same time. It's different parts of your brain, and in order to activate the one part, the other part kind of has to turn off, so to speak. So anytime you are feeling really paralyzing fear, just think of one thing that you're thankful for or that you're appreciative for, and then it turns off the fear sector just for that time. And what I remember is, I always think of it like this. I love coffee, right? And I get on a first name basis with all the people, all of my baristas at the coffee shops, right? I go to several of them. But when I think about, gosh, this person probably got up at 5 a.m. to be there and awake and, brewing my coffee for me. And that is not a small job, right? And it's a little bit of a thankless job, right? So whether you work in a thankless job or whether you feel like, know that there is someone out there that appreciates what you do, right? And nothing is wasted. There's no such thing as a small job. We are all very important players in a bigger scheme of things. So sometimes you can be, and again, the Queen of Wands is that movie star type card, right? She's a powerhouse. She really is. She's very warm. She's very creative. And when she starts to get in the doldrums, she probably feels like, gosh, I have all this creative energy. Have I been putting it to the right use? You know, it feels kind of useless. And here, seeing the star under judgment, it's kind of saying, yes, you know, don't despair. Don't think that this 7 is not enough, because this 7 is enough. Everything that you've done, you know, the things you have done are not small. They're not small. You might be thinking small right now, but it's not. It's not small. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was wasted. Now, clarifying, and what came out kind of underneath the stars, you got the Hanged Man and you got the 4 of Wands. And oh gosh, guys, talk about, you know, everything that we were just talking about. You know, the Hanged Man is about being uncomfortable, but embracing the perception of that, right? And we did How to Tarot and Hanged Man, if you get a chance to watch that. But when you are when things are turned on their head, you can kind of see things from a greater perspective, right? And when you can see things from a greater perspective, it means that you can understand how nothing is wasted, right? It is getting the greater view, but the view that you have is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, because it's not like you're seeing this from the Archangel Gabriel's vantage point. It's not like you're seeing it from the vantage point of the woman in the star card. You are in the thick of it, right? You are the person that's doing all that tedious day-to-day work and feeling like it's not getting you anywhere. But the universe is telling you that the calling that you're having, you are going places. Things are going to get really, really good for you. But you just kind of have to see the situation for what it is. You might have to look at it from a different perspective to really understand all that higher benefit. But that the victory will come to you, though, because you got the 4 of Wands. And the 4 of Wands is that celebration card. It's that milestone card. It's like, you know, you will reach the milestones that you're looking to reach. You will get to that. But you do have to get very honest and blunt about where you want to go. And you kind of have to, you know, in your heart, with your gut, you have to follow and trust that calling. And there will be times that you're not always comfortable. You know, there's going to be times that you might get into that smaller mindset. Now, moving forward, we did get a few cards that kind of are a little bit, you know, tough ones. We got the 5 of Wands and we got the 10 of Swords. Now, the 10 of Swords is that really scary card that, you know, shows 10 swords in the back, right? But the thing about the 10 of Swords is that the other meaning of it is sometimes you can feel like you've been stabbed in the back 10 times, right? It's a little bit, the 10 of Swords can be deciphered as a little bit of an over-exaggeration card, right? Because, you know, to be stabbed in the back really only requires 1 sword, right? The moment you have 10, it's like, would you have really stood there and allowed yourself to be stabbed 10 times, you know? And it's not downplaying your emotions, but I think what it's saying is that with the 5 of Wands is conflict. And it's competition. The typical Rider-Waite-Smith shows, you know, 5 people competing, right? They have wands that are all fighting each other, and they are all of equal strength. And 5 of Wands it's that annoying type of conflict. It can be the kind of conflict that gets really, you know, disturbing. It's, you know, it usually is the irritable type. And now, with this being in the future position, it does caution that the route that you're on the plans that you have, you are strong enough, and they are gonna turn out in your favor, but you might have some haters in what you're trying to do. You might have competition. And I am getting really a sense that this competition is trying to take you out, not because they dislike you, is because you are a threat to what they're trying to do, right? And the other thing about it is, I'm also getting a vibe like this might be a little bit of an over dramatization. Like, you might be looking at healthy competition. Okay, someone else has a channel that's similar to mine, and they're doing better than me. You might be looking at that competition as if it is the end of the world. So again, having a perspective card and having the Queen of Wands, definitely don't despair. It's telling you that you will get success, you will get that calling, but you are going to have some competition with it. It does kind of caution that, this competition might be out for you. It might involve a few stings. Either that, or it might involve an ending of partnerships. Like, if you had endeavors that you started that involved other people, it might later cause some rifts with other people, or it might cause some endings with people. But let me go ahead and pull one more card. I am just curious, because these two, please clarify the Five of Wands. Ooh, thank you. Seven of Cups. Aha, the Emperor wanted to come out earlier too, so the Seven of Cups is right there. Yeah, here I am kind of getting the feeling as if, I do get a feeling as if, you're just kind of being kind of stubborn about things. You're really kind of holding on to something. You are kind of, with this, and it flopped out right in between the Hangman and the Seven of Pentacles, I really just think that you are looking at these pentacles and saying, why aren't you growing? I need you to grow right now, right? Because the Emperor calls the shots, right? He's very firm in what he wants to do. He is a stubborn person, but he's a ruling person. And the fact that it crosses the Hangman is that I really do just think that you have a perception. You have a perception, and with it being the Page of Swords, the universe isn't trying to call you out, but it is just saying that you're not seeing things from a higher perspective, or the angels can kind of see things from, Google Earth, from a satellite perspective, and you might be a little bit close to the situation, and it's making you're just kind of like, it's kind of that grow, darn you, kind of energy. And it is encouraging you to shift into the Hanged Man energy. Okay, this situation is uncomfortable. Those pentacles are not going to grow any faster just because you're staring them down, right? But try to accept that and know that things are going on the right course. And the other descriptor that came out next to the Ten of Swords was the Seven of Cups. So here, the other thing about the Five of Pentacles is that, Five of Wands, is that can also mean inner conflict, right? It can be inner conflict. And the fact that you've got Seven of Cups, it can be inner or outer conflict, but basically what's happening is you have a lot of options for the goals that you have. There's a lot of paths that you can take. It's almost as if, as the angel's calling you, you could choose any one of those cups, and, any one of those cups can be your emotional fulfillment. It can be your emotional path. And you might very well just kind of feel inner turmoil about what you want to do, and it just kind of might make you feel a little bit lost and a little bit defeated, and not to, this is very murky energy for moving forward, but I think what the reason that it's reading that way is because where you're at right now, the future is not set yet, right? The future is still shifting. And if you stay in this energy, if you stay in this real fixed energy, if you stay in that energy of, I know what's right, why isn't it working out this way? It might lead you to a path that's a lot more conflicted and, unsettled than you deserve. And I think the Judgment card is calling you, right? It's calling you. It's saying, don't stay in that fixed energy. Let that fixed energy go. All it's going to do is bring you a bunch of conflict. It's going to make you feel lost. But the toughest part about the Emperor and the Hanged Man is that the Emperor likes control. He likes to know what's going to happen, right? But the Hanged Man doesn't know what's going to happen. He surrenders, right? And those are conflicting energies. It's almost like I want to put that Five of Wands right in between those two, because that's what's happening, right? That's what's happening in your soul and in your heart. You're like, I need to surrender, but I don't want to. I know what I need to do, damn it. And it's just kind of like, but the beauty of this spread, and again, there are no bad cards in tarot, is the beauty of this spread is that you do have a bright future. And if you kind of let go of some of the control, you will choose the cup that you're meant to. And when you choose the cup that you're meant to, it will eliminate all of this conflict. And you will, if you surrender and see things from a new perspective. And if you do that now versus later, it really will take you to a place of it will take you to the milestones that you want, right? Now the other thing is, this is the Four of Wands and this is the Five, so we do have a transition there. And then we have two sevens. So I do think right now you are kind of in a milestone place. I think you're really in a stable place right now. And then moving forward, there's going to be changes. And the decisions that you make now will really determine what changes come. But it is just, again, it's calling you to kind of make those decisions now. But there's definitely a strong theme to know that nothing is wasted. Anything that you've done up to now has had a purpose, even if you feel like it hasn't. And you do have you have options coming your way. So you can take heart and, just really, kind of see the situation as it is. Look at it from upside down. And if you need help or guidance, definitely ask for it. I know there have been times that I've been like, hey, either meditating or, paying attention to your dreams or, throwing cards to kind of say, what can I do? That really helps a lot and gives you some clarity. All right, guys. Well, that was our second to last Major Arcana. Now, the How to Tarots usually do run a little bit longer, so I thank you for sticking through that with me. But I do, we are gonna have one more Major Arcana next week. So if you tune in, it's gonna be number 21, the World. Oh my gosh, the World. Isn't that wild? We made it. Now, also this week, I think it's Thursday, we have the D20 reading, which is my Dungeons and Dragons reading. What it is it's a fantasy-based kind of read. It's always a lot of fun. I do it once a month on the 20th. And then on Saturday, I will host my weekly energy card reading. So I hope you can join me for those, and join me next week for the next How to Tarot, and I'll catch you then. Bye.